Alright, League of Legends fans, you know what time it is. It is time for another episode of the No FFs Podcast. A podcast where we hit it hard, we hit it fast, and we get to that point where we FF. No, we don't FF. We keep things going, we fight to the end, never give up, never surrender. We got a special episode for you today. Voting for LEC awards for the 2019 Spring Split are done. The ballots are in, like I said. They're going to be revealed in the coming weeks, so they'll be revealed at steps throughout the EU playoffs. And we're interested to see what happens. And I'm going to go through who my picks are for all the positions, rookie, coach, and MVP. So, starting in the top lane, my picks for LEC top lane are Cabochard, Wunder, and Vizicsacsi. So, immediately we're getting spicy. I see a lot of Wunder out there, and Wunder is a great player. We saw last year at Worlds how he can absolutely pop off and just carry his team to the semifinals if given resources. Great player, has not lost a step so far this split, has been fantastic for G2. But where I think Cabochard has an edge is you look at top lane, top lane stats, and they're both right there at the very top. Arome for Splice. Whew, what a debut he had as a rookie. But they're both up there, and the only real difference in my mind is I think that Wunder gets the benefit of more resources, more jungle attention from Jankos, consistent jungle attention. I think for me, Cabochard does more with less. He's this guy that if you leave him in the side lane as a split pusher, he'll almost always win the game. They have this great 1-3-1 strategy with him and Jizuke. And just for me, I feel like he is the one in that situation where he's carrying the rest of Vitality over the finish line. Jizuke, hope he's healthy. Bot lane still, for me, is a question mark in the crit meta. I think Cabochard is the guy. So Wunder, number 2. I think you can't really separate those two. But for me, I just have Cabochard just a slight bit higher. And then third place, I had Vizicsacsi. So I saw a lot of people thinking Odo Omne for this spot. The reason I don't go Odo is you look at these damage numbers, and Odo just jumps off the page, right? Number 1 damage percentage by a mile. Number 3 damage, really really high damage. But then you look at the champions that he's picking. It's range champions, Kennen, high damage champions. For me, Chachi is able to be very very successful for Splice in a much lower resource role. It's kind of his play style, and still be able to impact games. Honorable mentions for me are anywhere between Odo and Expect. I really think that Expect was fantastic for Excel. Some communication issues early on, but that team is nowhere, they don't get the wins that they got without Expect playing super well. He's organizing the team. He's teaching them how to play League of Legends. In the jungle, number 1, Jankos, Broxa, and we're going to go Xerxes. So the Jankos, this was really tough. Jankos Broxa for me was really tough because Jankos started hot, and then Broxa kind of assumed that mantle with the rise of Fnatic over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Broxa's been an early game menace. He's getting ganks off all over the place. He's out-pathing fools. He's playing really well. But I think for me, I look at the whole split. Jankos had such a strong start. He played Karthus early. Broxa's playing Karthus late. But I think even in some of G2's struggles in the last few weeks, Jankos has put together some decent starts to games, early games. And then he's been one of the reasons they've been able to come back, playing the map, playing the objectives. I think I give the benefit of the doubt to him and G2 a little bit because of the Mickey X injury. And I really like the value that he brought over all 9 weeks of the split. I think it was a real comeback split for him. Again, it was really tough to choose between those two. And then it was also really tough third place for Xerxes because, Xerxes started off a little rough, and he had some rough games early on, and he just kept growing and growing and growing. This was an incredibly tough position for me because the guys you're excluding, like Selfmade, I think Selfmade easily could have been 3, pushing for 2 on this list. I think Cold is another guy I saw a couple analysts talking about. I think Cold, again, like Xerxes, started off a little rough, has been better for Origin. I think, Xerxes carries a slightly heavier load with Splice and Humanoid, a rookie mid laner versus Nuke Duck. And so I give Xerxes that over Cold. Another guy that I think has performed very well this year is Mowgli. Looking at his ability to path and just how team oriented he is. He gives up a lot of resources to help his team. So those are all the guys that are in that mix. But for me, I go Xerxes in that third spot. Mid lane, Caps, Nuke Duck, and then this is where I'm getting a little spicy. I'm going to go special. I'm going to go special for that third role. I think Caps, if you look at the mid lane numbers, it's really interesting because Caps' lane actually hasn't been that good this year. So his lane numbers aren't actually that good. And this is also interesting, he's also not getting a ton of gold for his position. But then you look at the damage numbers. Now it's a slight, on Oracle's Elixir, they have Jizuke with the accent on the E and then the regular Jizuke. So this first line Jizuke is a little misleading, but Caps is leading in damage by a mile. He's been really consistent, probably along with Lunder, the more consistent members of his team. And I give Caps that first spot because of just whole split performance. You look at his performances in even G2's recent losses, and he's been magnificent. The one thing where, Caps versus Nuke Duck becomes an issue is the Origin game. The second Origin game that G2 lost, Caps did not have a good game. Nuke Duck popped off on Zed. But then a couple weeks later, we saw what Caps can do on Zed. It was a close loss against Fnatic, with G2 subbing in a support. So I give Caps that full split 9 weeks again of performance. Really liked what I saw from him. Nuke Duck, always dangerous. Really hard to pick between those two in terms of a best of 5. Like OG versus G2 right now, I'd probably pick OG. And it's probably because Nuke Duck can stand up to Caps, and he has that ability in Game 5. If he needs to blind pick something or needs to pull something out of his hat, he has something. But I think Caps, for the whole split, there's other dynamics going on between those two teams where I would rather have Origin in a best of 5. But I think Caps has proven this split. He is that best mid laner in Europe. He's proven it. He's played that way. And I just haven't seen that as much from Nuke Duck in terms of actually in the game. The third place, again, this one was really, it was a little close. It wasn't as close as Jungle for me. Listen, Special has been fantastic for Excel. He's not played like a rookie. He's played with some pretty, I would say, subpar setups in terms of what's going on around him. But you look at these lane numbers. You look at mid lane, gold differential. He's staying positive, XP differential. He's staying in lane, CS differential, staying in lane, staying close. And you look at the damage numbers. He's putting up pretty big damage stats. Percentage of team damage. Like, again, this is the setup, right? No, his team's not doing anything. He's the one carrying them over the line. The bot lane has been a disaster. I think the jungler has been a struggle for Excel. I think it's the solo lanes that are carrying this team. And then the guys that I think of in this role that might push him are Febiven and Humanoid for Misfits and Splice. Febiven has been a one-man band. I really felt bad leaving him off because he's basically done. He was my big question mark for Misfits coming into the year, and ironically, it's everything else about Misfits that's gone wrong. He's been fantastic. But I give Special. I just love the fact that he's come in. He's been this young player. I don't like to throw like just the big names in terms of the teams that are winning, successful, the most wins in these lists. I think he deserves it. And for me, the difference between him and Humanoid, they're pretty close in terms of kill participation. And you have to adjust for the fact that Special's played a lot fewer games. He's only played 10 games. But you look at the amount of deaths. Humanoid is number 1 in the league in deaths. Just been a little more reckless. And Special, so 24 is, it's only on 10 games, so it's 2.4 deaths per game, whereas 53 into 18 is just under 3 deaths per game. So for me, I give Special that third spot. I like to get a little spicy here. This is the No FFs podcast. We don't take any Fs from anyone. So Special is my third place mid laner. ADC, this was Reckless, Kabe, and Patrick. Notice I didn't put Perks on there. I still need to see Perks play crit ADCs. I mean, he's been playing like Draven, Lucian still. Those are okay picks. Lucian, maybe not so much anymore. But what does this guy do? Like, Cassiopeia, it wasn't a bad Cassiopeia game like later on, but that lane phase was absolutely abominable. The Kaisa, he's had some pop-off performances on Kaisa, but then he's gotten, caught in the late game in situations where you shouldn't be caught. I need to see that guy perform. So for me, Reckless, easy. Number one, he's performed in the crit meta. He's the guy that, for me, they've funneled some resources his way and gotten him ahead. And that's really changed the way that they've been winning bot lane. The lane itself, the lane phase, with Broxa coming down to bot lane, visiting early and often. That's been a big turnaround for me. Second place, Kabe. This probably some people don't agree with this. I think Splice in the late game, like they've been so good late game. I think it's because of Kabe. I think it's his damage. It's funny because his damage numbers, right? If you look at ADC damage in the league, just the way they team fight around him, like he's up there in damage. His lane has always been his weakness, but I think that team plays around his ability to carry in fights on big damage ADCs. And then for me, third place, it was really close between Patrick and Upset. Late game carries. I think Upset has a better lane than Patrick. He's able to stay closer. Patrick's lane is a little rougher, but I think Patrick has done so much for Origin. He's been exactly what they thought they would get out of him. An even defensive early lane phase into ton of damage numbers. Number 2 in kill participation. I think he's one of the pleasant surprises for Origin, and one of the things that really makes that team work. If he doesn't step up and if he doesn't provide damage in late game, that team falls apart. He's been that guy, and so for me, Patrick gets that third spot over Upset. Support. This is always a hard one to evaluate, just because when you're watching, you're watching them in such limited scopes of things that they do in terms of engaging team fights. You don't catch a lot of the little lane things. I mean, you can catch some of them in terms of how they use mana in lane, how they throw out spells in lane, how efficient they are. But it's just harder to judge without seeing what's actually going on in the bot lane all the time. For me, the 3 that I had, and it was really tough because I had 4 names on here. And I ultimately went Mithy, Mickey X, Hillisang, and I gotta say it was really tough leaving my boy Norse Garen off. I loved what he gave to Splice's bot lane and gave to Kabe, but Mickey X has been he hasn't been great this split, but I don't know if that's him or perks. There's just some sort of it's not together in that bot lane. And you've seen him feed sometimes. You've seen him feed defending perks. And for me, just the success that they've had with the bot lane, and even with perks, not maybe his champion pool isn't as big as you'd want it to be. I think I give Mickey X that. It's unfortunate that he's been hurt, unable to practice. I hope we see him back. I hope he gets better somehow, gets some rest between splits, but just get him right. I think, that bot lane, whatever dissonance that you saw in the lane phase could easily be explained by perks moving from mid lane to bot lane, and being completely new at that position. So I give Mickey X some credit there. And then for me, Mithy was number 1, really helped that Patrick lane. And then third is Hillisang, was really good with Reckless coming down the split, made a ton of plays for Fnatic as a team. You could just see the team concept falling together a little bit more. Moving into rookie of the split, easy. Selfmade. And, I had Special up there, but whole split performance, Selfmade played all games, and Special only played 10. And Selfmade, you could see some of the warts as the split, went on, some of the rookie mistakes, some of the errors, trying to go for too much without vision, kind of these things that you take from solo queue and you can't get away with in the big leagues. But his just ability to go balls to the wall, his ability to be aggressive on stage, in front of the big lights, in front of the audience, against some of these players that he's probably grown up watching play. Number 1 kill participation out of the jungle. This is a bit misleading because sometimes you can have high kill participation because you lose all your lanes, you can't do anything, and then you just try to fight your way out of it as a team. So you just get collapsed upon because the map falls apart. But I think he had, he was able to keep up his farm. He was able to keep up an experience. He did a ton of damage. I mean, not a great measure for a jungler, but, he was there. He was involved. And he was a big, big reason why a very, very, very young SK Gaming team was able to make it as far as they did. Listen, if you told me before the split SK Gaming could go 9-9, make playoffs, this is a massive win for them. I think he's by far the best rookie that we've seen this split. I'm excited to see him grow into that role. Special number 2 again for me. He was on my list of best mid laners. I think he deserved it. I think I'm really excited to see what I get out of him. And Europe is known for producing strong mid laners. The ones that you thought coming in, Abadage, Humanoid, Nemesis, those guys have a chance. Humanoid is actually my selection for third place rookie for his performances on a playoff team, putting it together with Xerxes. And that's my rookies. And then coach, this one was tough. So in my mind, there are only 3 guys that I think deserve coach. So Gyotto, Origin coach, Duke, coach for Splice, and Young Buck, Fnatic coach. I went with Gyotto because if you told me Origin would be number 2 heading into this year, I don't know that I would have believed you. If you told me Fnatic would be 3, yeah, I could see that. Bringing 4 members of a Worlds finalist team back. Maybe missing the best one, but I could see that. Number 3. If you told me Splice would be 4, yeah. They have young players, but Chachi's good. Xerxes can be good in the right meta, and he's been better at adapting the meta. Kabe, he's been there for a while. Norse Garen, one of the better supports. Yeah, I could see that. Origin was the one I didn't know, because Alfari, right? Strong starts on Misfits, can't control a late game. Cold, very inconsistent jungler. Nuke Duck, we've seen it Year of Duck last year, but, can he put it together again? Patrick, H2K last year, rough. I mean, we saw the talent from him, but what are we going to get out of that bot lane? Miffy coming over from TSM? It was just a bag of question marks around Nuke Duck, and Gyotto made it work. So for me, it's Gyotto. Now, Veteran on Twitter, so Veteran's an EU coach that I really respect, says it should be obvious that Young Buck should be coach of the split. He's developed the team. It's they've changed the way they played, and that's why they're successful. And they're probably, right up there. They're probably the favorites to win the LEC right now, right? With the way that they finished the spring split. But for me, Gyotto, the full split performance, like we've mentioned before, and just the question marks hitting that team, he's answered every single one of them. And Veteran made a good point, is that they have players where it's like the perfect mix of temperaments. I agree with that. But, you have situations like that all the time that don't work out, right? You think Misfits is a pretty good mix of temperaments, with Gorilla calling the shots, Hansama being moldable, he's able to learn. It hasn't worked out for them, so... respect to Veteran, but I think it's Gyotto. Number 2, I actually have Duke over Young Buck. Duke, again, Splice, I think has grown a ton. And if you just even look at the growth of Xerxes and Humanoid, that mid-jungle combination alone, I think it deserves strong recognition from a coach. And I think there's the horizon for that team might be the brightest of all, because they got young players coming out the ears. Orome coming in. I think that's a really strong situation. MVP. This is tough, man. This is tough. So, I looked at the people that I voted for the top spots. How many G2 members did I vote for? I voted for almost all of them, except for Perks. How many Fnatic members did I vote for? A couple of them. How many Splice people did I vote for? Again, a lot of them. For me, the guy that has risen above not only his peers, but what his teammates have been able to do in terms of carrying his team the most on his shoulders, I go back to the first name that I said. It's Cabochard for me. Now, MVP was really interesting because I thought, just like top lane was a toss-up between Cabochard and Wunder, I thought MVP was. Wunder was magnificent this split. And it wasn't, it was on a variety of champions, on early game picks, late game picks. Same for Cabochard, really. And for me, it just came down to, I felt like Cabochard had less help. I think he had the less impactful jungler. I think Jizuke doesn't help him as much as Caps does. I don't think he gets the type of pressure taken off of him that Wunder does. If Wunder traded places with Cabochard, I think both would be really successful. I think you would see another level out of Cabochard that we're not seeing on Vitality yet. And that's why Vitality Cabochard is my MVP vote for the 2019 Spring Split in the LEC. This is my MVP, and all LEC, rookie, coach, these are my votes. And love to hear what your thoughts are, but that's the rest of this episode. Signing off. We'll see what happens when the actual results are revealed. See you next time.